Israel camped at the edge of the Jordan. Moses was dead. Joshua now led, but he did not lead alone. At his side stood 2 men, Caleb from the tribe of Judah, the warrior who had seen the land and never lost faith, and Eleazar, the high priest's son of Aaron, guardian of the covenant and God's presence. Joshua led the people. Caleb carried the memory. Eleazar preserved the holiness. Each one was needed to conquer the land not only by the sword, but by faith, obedience, and reverence. Now, on the eve of crossing, they look back and speak. This is Caleb.
I still feel the wind of Hebron on my face. It has been decades since that mission. The lines on my face are deeper now. My beard is white, my steps slower, but the memories blaze brighter than fire. I was 40 when I first stepped into Canaan. I'm 85 now, and I remember everything. Moses summoned 12 of us, 1 from each tribe, to spy out the land the Lord had promised our fathers. "Send men to explore the land of Canaan," he said, "which I am giving to the Israelites." I was chosen to represent Judah, the lion's tribe. I wore no crown, but I carried the strength of our house in my stride. Our orders were clear. See what the land is like. Whether the people who live there are strong or weak, few or many. What kind of towns they live in. Are they unwalled or fortified? But Moses said more to me in private. He gripped my shoulder, his eyes full of sorrow and fire, and said, "Remember, Caleb, this land was promised. Let fear not rewrite what God has spoken." So we went, 12 of us. Among them, a quiet man named Joshua from the house of Ephraim. I didn't know then how closely our paths would bind. We entered from the south, through the Negev, and then the hill country. The land was everything we had heard, and more. Rolling vineyards heavy with grapes, pomegranate trees blooming in the valleys, fields thick with grain. We cut down a cluster of grapes in the valley of Eshcol, so large it took 2 of us to carry it on a pole. But beauty in Canaan was draped over stone and steel. Every hill bore a city, Hazor in the north with its tiered fortifications, Megiddo gleaming with bronze gates, Gezer carved into the rock, and Hebron itself rising like a fortress on the back of a lion. Walls climbed the cliffs, watchtowers scanned the sky, smoke rose from temples at every peak. They were not waiting to be conquered. They were ready to devour. There were 7 nations, each different, each dangerous. The Hittites held the upper hill country, cold-eyed warriors draped in lamellar armor and thick cloaks. They worshipped gods of storm and sky, Teshub they called him, who demanded oaths sealed in blood. The Girgashites kept to the swampy north near marshlands and waterlogged plains. They painted their faces with ash, communed with spirits in the reeds, and hunted silently, their arrows poisoned with frog venom. The Amorites stood like towers in the hill ridges of the west and east of the Jordan, proud, massive. They wore polished bronze and wreathed their hair in braids soaked in oil. They worshipped moon gods and the stars. I remember one looking down from a battlement, and even at a distance, his form eclipsed the wall behind him. The Canaanites ruled the lowlands and the coast, traders, builders, astute in gold and cunning in war. They worshipped Baal, the storm lord, and Asherah, the mother tree. Their priests danced by firelight, their children placed on altars. The stench of incense and blood never left their cities. The Perizzites were village folk of the forested hills, rough and fearless. They sang to gods of earth and field. I saw a village of theirs built into the trunks of oaks, smoke curling from tree hollows. The Hivites were smooth-tongued, dwellers near Shechem and Hermon, skilled in treaties, masters of speech. Their leaders wore linen dyed purple, but behind their smiles were blades. Their gods were those of underworld waters and night things, and the Jebusites. They ruled Jerusalem, the city set on stone. They were neither many nor loud, but their silence was heavier than iron. They worshipped a god they called Shalim, the god of dusk. Their priests wore robes like shadows. But there was another people, not of the land. From the west, from the depths of the sea, came the Philistines. They were unlike the others, not sons of Canaan, but strangers, sea peoples, arriving in long black ships with sails striped red and white. Their hulls curved like crescent moons. Their warriors disembarked in lines, silent and focused, their helmets horned and crested, their armor layered with bronze plates. They spoke in clipped, foreign words, their tongues harsh and unfamiliar. They did not burn offerings, they smoked them. They did not sing praises, they beat drums and marched in cold unison. They had no kings, only warlords, and their craft was unmatched. Their swords cut cleaner than ours. Their shields gleamed like gold. They forged with iron while we still struck bronze. Their cities rose fast: Gaza, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Gath, and Ekron, the Pentapolis of the Philistines. Fortresses near the sea, anchored to the coast like teeth on the edge of the continent. They were fewer in number then, but already dangerous. Their walls were new, their gods hungry. Even the Amorites watched them with unease. And deeper still, in Hebron and the hill fortresses, we saw the Anakim, sons of Anak, giants. Their heads nearly touched the rafters of their halls. Their muscles rippled like knotted ropes. They wore hides of bulls, necklaces made from human bone. Their eyes were black, deep-set, like caves. One of them, Ahiman, had a voice that made the stones vibrate when he laughed. Sheshai and Talmai stood beside him, their massive swords stabbed into the dirt like trees, and they were not alone. We had heard tales of the Rephaim, the Shades, as they were called. They lived in Bashan and the northern hills, silent, pale-skinned. They moved with the slowness of ghosts, but they struck with the force of thunder. Og, king of Bashan, was one of them. They said his bed was of iron and measured 13 feet long. To the east, near the ancient lands of Moab, were the Emim, terrible ones. Their hair was long and wild, their faces painted with ochre and black lines. They howled at night, raising terror in the desert winds. Their priests carried staffs adorned with skulls and raven feathers. And the Zamzumim, near Ammon, men of great height and strange tongue. Their skin was grey, and their voices like wind through stone. They were said to speak to the earth. They did not laugh. They did not blink. We were not prepared. I heard men whisper that the Nephilim lived again. One night, I awoke to the sound of one of our spies weeping. He had dreamed of Anakim walking through the camp, crushing us one by one. Another claimed he saw a Rephaim drink from a spring and turn it black, and slowly the fear overtook them. The ones chosen to lead their tribes, men who were meant to be bold, discerning, faithful, they broke, one by one. I saw it in their eyes before it left their mouths. Dismay, doubt, panic. Sether of Asher muttered endlessly about the walls at Sidon. Nabi from Naphtali claimed the mountains had eyes. Shaphat of Simeon, usually loud, could not speak without trembling. Even Palti of Benjamin, the youngest of us but clever, refused to sleep, convinced the Canaanites were watching him through the hills. They were supposed to be warriors. Instead, they whispered like children in the night, and I felt fury rise in my chest, not just for their fear, but for what it would cost. The Lord had not brought us through the Red Sea and the fire of Sinai to hear his promise spat on by cowards in cloaks of leadership. When we returned to the camp, They gathered the people and let their fear pour out. "The land we explored devours those living in it," they cried. "All the people there are of great size. We saw the Nephilim there. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them." And the people cried out in fear. I stood. I could not stay silent. "The land we passed through is exceedingly good. If the Lord is pleased with us, he will lead us into that land, a land flowing with milk and honey. Do not rebel against the Lord. Do not be afraid of the people of the land. Their protection is gone. But the Lord is with us. They wanted to stone us, me and Joshua. But I did not back down. I had seen what they saw. I had seen the giants. But I also remembered Egypt. I remembered the Nile turning to blood. I remembered Pharaoh kneeling to Moses. I remembered the sea parting, and I knew. I knew that no Anak, no Rephaim, no gods of stone or ash could stand against the word of our God. Joshua said little, but his silence was strength. He looked at me, and in his eyes I saw what I carried in my own heart. We were not afraid. We had tasted the same fire. That night we became brothers. Moses later told us that the others would die in the wilderness, that only we would live to enter the land. And so it was. Now, decades later, I stand with Joshua again just beyond the Jordan. I am old, my beard is white, but my strength has not left me. I look to the hills and I remember the giants, and I smile, because this time we are not spies. This time we are the storm.